Good morning. Today we are continuing to work with those fractions. We are doing CO14. I can locate a fraction on a number line and know its value relative to 0, half, and 1. So you can think of this objective as estimating the value of a fraction. So a quarterback who completes 25 out of 44 of his passes completed about half of his passes. Now we say about because it's an estimate. So to be exactly half, we would have to take 44 divided by 2. That would be 22. So 25 out of 44 is close to half. So we say it's about half. Eating 3 out of 90 M&Ms is eating almost none of them. Right? Because it's close to that 0. Getting 35 out of 36 on a test is getting almost half of them correct. And just a side note for my friends who usually come up for those who don't have a lot of notes for taking them, so there's nothing for me to copy out. All right, so we looked at how these fractions were 25 over 44, 3 over 90, 35 over 36. If we're using the 0, half, and 1 pages for our estimations because they're common values that are easy to visualize. So if we look at 25 out of 44 is about a half. Oh my gosh, why? This is not what you want for me. Okay, so I got Screencastify working and now my pen doesn't want to work because technology is just so fun. So let's see the best way to do this. I don't have a copy to write on. We're just going to talk it through. I'm not going to write it, but you're going to write it, okay? If we look at 7/8, is that going to be closer to 0, a half, or 1? What do you think, Bridget? Why do you think it's the closest to 1? What would 1 be as a fraction? 8 out of 8, 8 eighths. And 7 is really close to the 8, right? A half would be what fraction? 4/8. So 7/8 is closer to 8/8 than it is to 4/8. So what we would put for this 7/8 is you're going to put it's closer to 1. And how do we know? You're going to put 8/8. So we can see that it is closest to that 8 over 8, which is 1 whole. James?
Does it be, if 4/8 is a half, is it 3/4 closer to a half or 0?
3/4?
Yeah, no, 3/8.
3/8 would be closer to a half than 0, because 0/8 and 4/8. 3 is closer to the 4 than it is to the 0. Okay. So let's look at 4/40. Do you think 4/40 is closer to 0, closer to a half, or closer to 1? What do you think, Helen? Why do you think it's closer to 0? Because 20 is half. 20/40 and 0/40. The 4 is closer to that 0 than it is to 20. So you're always going to want to look at that denominator and see what the halfway point is. Divide that denominator by 2 and check to see, is my fraction closer to that halfway mark? Is it closer to 0 or is it closer to that whole number, 40 over 40? Obviously 4 is not going to be close to 40. Okay. Any questions on this top part? I know I wasn't writing it out. Are we understanding what to write? So you're going to write what it's closer to, 0, half, or 1. And then you're gonna explain how you know, like Helen said, well, it's closer to 0/40. So you're gonna write 0/40, because that's what it's closest to. Okay? Okay. Then, it says, place each fraction below in its appropriate place on the number line. So we need to decide where it's going to fall. Is it gonna fall close to the 0? Is it gonna fall just below a half, just above a half, or close to the 1? So when you're looking at that halfway mark, you divide that denominator by 2. Is it just less than it? Then it's going to be to the left of the half. Is it just more than a half? Then it's going to be to the right. And if it is close to the 1, you're going to go over by that 1. So if we look at 28/50ths, where do you think I'm going to put that on the number line, Kylie? Close to which number? 0, half, or 1? So 28/50ths. Remember what I said? The first thing we do is we check what the halfway mark is. What is half of 50? 25. So is that 28 closer to 0 or closer to 25? It's closer to the 25. So then, when it's the halfway one, we have to decide, is it just less than half, or is it just more than half? So if halfway is 25, and I have 28, which side of that half am I gonna put it on? To the right, because it's a little bit more than half. So I would put 28/50ths to the right of the halfway, but close to the half, because it's closer to 25 than it is to the 50, because 1 whole would be 50/50. You see how we work those ones out? Do it for all 4 of them. You're going to need to put them on the number line. Decide where it's going to fall, close to 0, close to a half. If it's close to the half, is it less or more than a half? Or is it closest to the 1? So you're going to place them on the number line. James?
You can use the mouse cursor to place 40.
I could, but I have to be at my desk for that, and I like to be in front when I'm teaching.
Okay.
So pointing, you still know where I'm at. I just can't write anything. Technology. Complete the table by writing in the values that make the fraction close, but not equal to 0, half, or 1. So if we look at the 0 column, if I have 32 on the top, what do you think I want to put as a denominator to make it look close to 0? Emma? So if I had 32/64, is that close to 0? No, that's going to be half. So if we want it to be close to the 0, what do I have to do to that denominator? Bennett? Yeah, I need to make that denominator really big. And I would go even higher, Bennett. I would go up to 1,000. Because I know 32 is definitely closer to 0 than it is to 1,000. So I would put 1,000 as my denominator. Because when I want my fraction to be close to 0, I want my numerator to be much, much smaller than that denominator. I want a really big denominator. Does that make sense? Now if we look at the half one, we don't want it to equal a half, but we want it to be close to a half. So if I have 32 as my numerator, what might make a good denominator? Helen? 65. I love that Helen didn't go with exactly doubling it. Doubling it would be 64. but we don't want it to be equal to a half. So we know if we multiply 32 by 2, it's 64. So he went with 65, because that's really close to that halfway mark, but not equal to it. James? So, what would we put to make it close to 1 whole, but not equal to 1 whole? James?
40?
I would get it even closer, James.
39?
Even closer, James.
33?
33. 1 off. 32 over 33 is super close to 1 whole, but it's not actually 1 whole. 1 whole would be 32 over 32. Just change it by 1. You want it to be that close. So to be close to that 1 whole, you want them to be almost the exact same numbers. To be close to the half, you want the top to be almost exactly half of your denominator. Not quite exact, but close. And to be close to that 0, we wanted that denominator to be huge, because we want it to be as close to 0 as we can get. Adeline. So for 10 over what number? Yeah, I put 1,000. But if we look down at the bottom 2 rows, now all of a sudden we have no numerator. Uh-oh. So let's look at this row. Think to yourself, if I want to be super close to 0, and I have a denominator of 25, what should I put as my numerator, Erin? I would go even smaller. Like 1. 1 over 25, super close to 0. Right? So if you don't have the denominator, you make it huge. If you don't have the numerator, put a 1. Super close to 0. James?
For the half one on 25, can I put like 14?
What is half of 25? Jack? 12 and a half is the halfway mark of 25. I would just put 12. 14 would work. You would get credit for that. I like to look at what the halfway mark is, and I go, if it's a decimal, like half of 25 would be 12 and a half. I would just put 12. You could put 14, because that's definitely close to a half. So if I say you can put different things, you just have to be really close. There's not one right answer, and that's the only answer you can get. You just have to be super close. So for this one, blank over 25, what would I put? Maddie? 26 over 25, really close to 1 whole. Okay, does that make sense how to fill this chart in? All right. Then we have review. What do we do if we don't know how to do the review, Emma? Look back into your previous objectives to remind yourself how to do it. Okay. Any questions on today's assignment? All right. If you're watching this at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.